Alright guys, I don't typically like to do follow-up videos, but I think in this case I want to because of the controversy behind the railroad spikes. So I just posted the railroad spike video, and it's interesting the responses that I got, and not surprising. The one thing I want to do, somebody mentioned on Facebook, just because those spikes did well. First of all, if you didn't watch the whole video in my commentary at the end, the commentary at the end is very important. But for the new guys and gals, of course, I call everybody guys. So when I say guys, I mean gals also. Just because those knives did so well, doesn't mean that it's good steel. All right, it's just made a good knife. I think I would call it a good knife. Not a great knife, although maybe. We'll just say I think it's a good knife, definitely a good tool. But for the new guys, if you post something and you get a constructive comment, that's not the time to throw this video in their face and say, but yeah, look what happened. I mean, look at, Chandler made those knives and they worked really, really well. When somebody says, you use 001 or use, a higher content carbon, they're right. Right, but when they start jumping all over your ass and calling the things crap, and you couldn't whittle your freaking, I don't know, soap with it, then go ahead and throw that video up, because it's not crap. It's not crap. I had somebody say, I think a wrought iron knife would do the same thing. I mean, those type of arguments, who knows? But anyway, the reason I'm doing the follow-up, a couple of reasons. Number one, somebody brought up a good point. And they said I would have liked to seen the same knife used for everything. So I made the kitchen knife and I did the kitchen stuff in it, which wasn't a great challenge, except I was cutting on granite. I guess that's a big no-no. I don't know. I figured, hell, it's a nice hard surface to cut on. The knife performed well on that. But after I did all the abuse on the what I'm calling the bushcraft style knife, somebody said it would be nice to see you go back and cut the vegetables with that. So I'm going to do that now. I haven't touched the knives. They're sitting right where I left them when I went home yesterday. So I'll use the same knife that I used that took all that abuse. We'll cut a tomato and see what happens. I think that's worth looking at. And then somebody Mike brought up on Facebook. I said, well, they were saying, it's not a good knife. It's not a good knife. You can't call it a good knife. I said, well, what is a good knife? And they pointed me to some legitimate guidelines that they said were for testing good knives. They're great knives. And I'm looking through it. The JS guideline and the ABS. I might have the name. Yeah, guidelines for the test. And I'll read one of these to you, and I'm sorry, but if this is good information, especially for us new guys, because I have never looked at these, and that's a shortcoming in my thing. I'm trying to make a knife. This tells me I was informed that this told me what a good knife should be able to do. But as I read through this, these are not tests of knives. This is a test of your blacksmithing ability. This is a test to go to a particular level in the naming levels, master journey, etc. Blacksmithing. So it's to test your ability to forge a knife, which if you were going to go for a test to forge a knife, I don't think any of us would use a railroad spike. Period. All right? To test your blacksmithing ability, you would do that forging with a very good quality steel. But since it was brought up that this is the test of a good knife, and in reality it's a good smith, we're going to run through. I think we're going to run through these tests. Some of them, I don't know if it's fair or not with the knives that I made. But the test involves rope cutting, and they want you to get a 1-inch piece of rope hanging freely. And towards the loose end of the rope, you put a mark, and then you need to cut that within 2 inches. That with one cut. All right. Unfortunately, I couldn't find 1 inch. This is 3/4, and I'm not sure if that's going to make it easier for the knife or more difficult. The extra weight against it of the 1 inch, it might actually make it better. That's all I got. So this is not a true test, but I'm just following up on some of this. So with one cut, you have multiple tries. With one cut, you're supposed to slice through that rope. That's one of the tests. The next test is to take a 2x4, a typical 2x4, and cut through it twice with a chopping motion, no whittling. And again, if I were to design a knife for this test, I wouldn't first of all, I wouldn't use a spike. Second of all, I wouldn't have used this geometry, all right? I mean, this is a very quick knife that I built. I did all that stuff in one day. So, but I knew I wanted a whittling thinner edge and then a thicker chopping edge. I would not have put this. This is going to be a fracture point here, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. The knife performed well. I certainly would use a longer knife so that I have much more power. I mean, this little short thing to cut through a rope, I mean, I think it's going to be impossible, but we're going to give it a go. Definitely the geometry of this knife, I think it's unfair in this test because I wasn't designing it for that. I was designing it as a bushcraft knife, and the thing worked phenomenally, I think. So they want you to chop through a 2x4, which this little lightweight thing is going to take me forever, but we'll do it. Twice. You got to chop through it twice. Once you chop through it, the edge is supposed to be examined to make sure you didn't have any deformations, and then with that same knife, without doing anything, you're supposed to shave hair, all right, in the same spot that you were chopping the rope to prove edge retention. And then the final test, in both of these, the testing is pretty much the same. The final test is for you to take this knife, and I'll get into the details when I run the test, and to, I think, 3 inches above, which puts me right at this freaking fracture point, but what the heck. Clamp that into a vise, and they want you to bend it 90 degrees, which is a destructive test, I think, in almost every case. Now, they're doing that to test your tempering ability. Again, this is really a Smith test, not a knife test. So when you should be able to bend it. They allow the edge to crack, I think 1/3 of the width of the blade. It doesn't allow any chipping, but the spine is not supposed to crack. So it'll be sad because I kind of like this knife. It performs really well, but I think we'll do that. We'll see how I feel. I don't know if I'll go to 90 and totally destroy it or not. But anyway, that's what we're going to do today. I have my interview here at 11 o'clock, so it'll probably be a hit or miss. Cut some rope, chop through a couple of 2x4 twice, and then shave hair, and then the bend test. So I'm going to do that just for the sake of me learning. All right. I would not show up at a test, a blacksmithing exam, with a railroad spike knife and say, "Hey, I'm a good blacksmith." All right. But we're going to give it a go. What the heck do we got to lose? So, like I said, this knife, I have not touched it since yesterday. So all the abuse I went through, it's still there. Let me get set up with the tomato. We'll do that first, just to show. And again, if I were making a knife to cut a tomato, I wouldn't use one with a freaking, what is that? I mean, it's more than an eighth. All right? It's not quite a quarter, I don't think. Spine. This grind, I wouldn't use such an aggressive grind there. I'd use something more like this. Moreover, look at this. I mean, I couldn't get this. I've never done this kind of grind before, and I couldn't get a good clean grind. I mean, if you look at this hump that's here, which may or may not have actually helped me, that wasn't by design. And the quality, I didn't put a lot of time into grinding it. I got it to the profile that I wanted, and then sharpened it to the point where I was pleased with its sharpness. But on my belt grinder, let me show you. See if I can zoom in here. Maybe you can see it. I mean, my platen is deformed. All right, when I built this thing, I built it too thin a steel. I don't know if I can get you over there, but you see the curve that's in there. All right, and then when I was grinding to try to cut this groove in here, all right, in the middle, it obviously is deformed. I can actually feel it now. It's humped in this way. So this, there's no way for me to put a proper grind on that with the equipment. I have to rebuild that plating. So, I mean, that's kind of the reason that I'm zoomed in. I'm just sorry. It's kind of this isn't really a good example of a well-constructed knife. I was trying to show that the steel isn't as horrible as some people say. It's still, I think it made a good knife. It's not a great knife. It's certainly not an award-winning master blacksmith knife. All right, enough talking. Let me get set up for the tomato cut. And like I said, I'm going to have to interrupt this to get ready for my interview, but still, let's see what happens. I think it'll cut the tomato, although I wish you know, it's not fair. That is not a tomato cutting profile. Number one, the reason I'm doing this is not to take somebody who was being a jerk and prove them wrong. The person that brought all this up was being constructive. I mean, you can't really say it's this unless you go through this particular thing. Again, I disagree with the test because it's the test of the smith, not the knife. Not this knife especially. But and also, I wish I could clean up them. And I was chopping through that wood that I was doing all the chopping. The firewood was maple. And then the saplings, I'm not sure what. So if there's sap, and you know, it's not clean. I wish I could clean it, but I won't. Let's see what happens. All right, I'll use the front end here first. Am I insane? I am. All right, it's not sharp like the kitchen knife, but we'll see what kind of thinness we can cut. The profile is the problem. You know, it's not a profile to be cutting thin tomatoes. But that, again, I have not touched this knife since the test. Let's go ahead, the back spot here, I mean, that's really sharp still. Alright, so I don't have, it's almost not wide enough for the tomato, but I think, guys, I'm glad he brought it up because I think this is a good thing to do, but that's slicing some pretty damn thin slices of tomato. Tomato is what I'm doing. So I think that's good. I think it's not as sharp as the kitchen knife was, but that's after all the beating. So you let me know, Mike, what you what you think. Give me a shout out on Facebook. Again, look at the grind that I did. I didn't even do a clean, smooth grind. I mean, on a kitchen knife, you want a nice smooth grind on that. But I think after all that abuse, this thing just, I mean, it just shows, I think it's showing very well. Front end isn't, it's so wide it doesn't work, but back here where I wanted the whittling, I mean, what the heck, I mean, that's, so sick of working with tomatoes. I mean, it cuts. It will cut. Okay, we'll clean this mess up and then we'll move on. Another question that was asked is what did I do for tempering? And what I did is what I typically do with a railroad spike knife. I harden this, which I quench in water. I find that the railroad spike knives take that hardness in water better than oil. As hard as they can be, right? It's a low carbon. Now, yeah, it's low carbon. All right, but there is some carbon in it. Anyway, I quench in water, and then what I typically do is I clamp, and watch my videos, I clamp this into a vise, and then I bring the spine up to blue. So because of that, I think this knife would probably perform, because it's such low quality steel, low quality in the carbon steel realm, I think that this knife would perform well in the bend test if I didn't have this particular profile grout in there. I'm afraid that this is going to stress it too much. We're going to find out, aren't we, if I stop talking. And that's all I did. With the kitchen knife, straight up, I didn't temper this at all. All right. Again, it's not the greatest steel in the world, so tempering is I want it sharp. I want it so that the thing's going to cut and stay sharp. You drop it on a concrete floor, the thing might break. But that I don't think that's too much to ask out of what was supposed to be a kitchen knife. If I put this in the vise and bend it, I'm certain it'll snap because it's no softer than that test I did with the hardened piece at the end. So again, to test the knife, geez, I think if you want to test a bushcraft knife, you go out and chop some stuff. I mean, I was cutting that when I cut perpendicular through that wood, I'm shocked at how well that worked. Cutting on a little sapling, and maybe that discredited the knife a little bit, but geez, I mean, it whittled fine. It chopped okay for the little knife that it was, and then pounding through all of that maple. I mean that's a good test, I think, for this knife. To bend this kitchen knife, I think that's not at all proving that that's a good knife. All right. If I'm trying to make it, I mean, the test is for the smith, not so much the knife. The knife test should be relative to the function of the knife. Let me clean up. I'm talking too much. Well, up until this point, you haven't seen, or I haven't. Once I started the testing yesterday, I have not reground or anything, stropped or nothing. This blade was as it was. So for the blacksmith test, the JS test, I'm going to go ahead and just put an edge back on this thing because that test should start with a unabused knife. to the best that I can. Again, this it's a pretty crappy grinding job in the first place. I'll go ahead and resharpen it, and we'll try the rope test. I might have time for that before the interview, and then we'll come back and we'll chop some 2x4s. That'll take me a good old long time, but hold tight. I'll be back once it's reground. All right, and again, dude, dudettes. This is a quick knife that I put together. So there's the profile. Hopefully you can see any details in the blade, so we can compare it after the testing. Hopefully I remember to do that before we bend the thing. All right. So it's about as sharp as I had it before, I think. How do I get you to get a good focus on that edge? Well, it is what it is. Okay. All right. Okay. That's that. Yeah, I should start getting ready about 10:30. It's 10:10 now. Let me hang a rope. We'll give the rope test a try. Nothing like being disappointed or excited before the interview. Hold tight. In plans, I just got a phone call. The interview is rescheduled for tomorrow, so let's go ahead and finish this test, and then I can actually get some work done today, which I didn't get much done yesterday. So that's cool. All right, so in the guidelines, a mark 6 inches above the bottom, and you have, I think, plus or minus 2 inches on that hit. I mean, this thing is just, it doesn't even feel right for trying to cut a rope, so hopefully I don't cut myself in the process. Never tried this before, so I have no idea. So we got 3/4 of the way through. I'm okay with that. I'm pretty impressed with that, actually. Alright, we're going to try this again. I just taped the bottom up. I put the mark here. The last time I hit was up here, so as long as I'm not cutting in that spot. Again, there's so much. This is just something you got to be used to doing. I don't even know what the right technique is. Is it slicing or is it just chopping through? Alright, halfway through, no, 3/4. So there's 3 strands here. This strand is held on by just a little bit, and then the seam, and then this one here is full. So I'm going to try one more time. I think I get one more shot. As I accept the fact that this failed, I'll call it a failure, and that's it. But I really want to know what it is that I can do. Alright, so I'm going to try one more time. There's my mark right there. I've been coming in trying to go horizontal. I'm going to just try to come down at it and see what happens. It's just, I don't know anything about this. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's good. I'm happy with it. The freaking railroad spike, for crying out loud. Let me zoom in on that for you. Let me see if you can focus on this. So where are we? Okay, so there's the rope. We cut through all of that, and almost, where am I? Focus. Almost all of it. I mean, just a half a twist left in there. That was very, very cool. This is like nylon in it too. Again, call it a failure. I have no problem with that. I'm going to do it one more time though, because I want to figure it out. Again, and those of you that have experience with this, with the 1-inch rope, give me more mass to hit against and maybe cut a little better or not. We did pretty well. I mean, we went through in 2 of the tests, all but in the second one, about that much was left. All of this was cut. So it's not a great knife. This is certainly not the profile nor the size of knife that I would use for this, but I think it performed well. I'm comfortable with how it performed against that test, but it failed. So I am not a journeyman smith yet. All right, now we'll move on to the 2x4 chopping one. Oh my God, it's gonna take forever. Hold tight. In this test, you need to chop through the 2x4 twice. And this little knife, I wouldn't bring this knife to a 2x4 fight, but we'll go ahead and give it a go. Alright. right? See what happens. It ain't fair, man. Poor knife is not the right size. It's a test of your smithing abilities, not a little pocket knife. Still sharp. Give me a break. We'll not sharpen this. We'll cut through again. Man. Let's go ahead and finish this up. Well, I'll tell you what I do to find the truth in things is amazing. Funny what a little bit of experience will do for you, huh? Alrighty, Aphrodite, we're about to have the homeward stretch. I got a knot there I gotta work around though. Chia. Holy mamas. She sure does sound sharp still. There ain't no way she is, not with this kind of steel. but she might impress us. So let's see what we got. After the two chops. You immediately, without doing anything, need to shave hair. So let's see what we can do. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole hell of a lot of hair left on this arm to shave. Let me try here. You focusing? Let me zoom out a little bit. There ain't a lot of hair there. Where am I? Oop. It just fell. Well, you can see. Unfortunately, I lost my little spot here. Next time, don't let the hair fall on the ground, Chandler. I hate the wind. Dudes, it's shaved. It's clean shaven. Where am I? I want you here. Okay, if you don't believe me, we'll try this arm. What's little hair among friends? Alright. Don't let the wind get to this one. Alright, it's there. I got a bald spot. It's there. Uh-oh, little blood on that one. Now you're gonna say, oh, he wasn't shaving, he was just cutting himself. Oh my God, you guys are such a pains in the asses. What about here? Alright. Are we okay? Can't see it in the sun. Alright, I'm not shaving anymore. Dude, it's right here. Alright, totally bald. Fair. So, and again, I'm not trying to prove anything, I really am not. I'm just following through with a conversation that I had last night. It's still a railroad spike, it's still a mediocre. Call it a good knife when you do it right. The thing can be a good tool anyway, for sure. So we failed the rope test, but it was quite impressive. And again, I don't know what a 1 inch would do. Would 1 inch help? I'm bald. I can get a tattoo there, right? Would a 1 inch help with more pressure or not? So we'll say the rope test failed, but it was impressive for what it is. 2x4 test passed, which leaves this bending thing, which, all right, let's do it. Test. Again, I said 3 inches up from the tip of the blade, which puts it right on this grind mark. So, and I'll tell you right now, I did not temper this. I'm not trying to justify anything. I'm just telling you what I did. I did not temper this as fully as I would a good high carbon steel knife, because I know it isn't the best steel. So I had hardened the entire thing, and I put a blue line down through here. But quite honestly, I didn't focus on here very much. I wanted this super hard because that was my carving. I was worried about it breaking in a batoning thing, but that proved not to be an issue at all. But with this particular bend, I don't know. We'll see what happens. So we got to put that in at the 3 inch mark in the vise. Here we go, children. You ready? I don't know what that is. Is that 30 degrees? That's something. That's like 60 degrees. I hope I'm in the freaking frame here. Oh my God. Oh my God, oh my God. Dude, that's 90 right there. I slipped off. It didn't break. Oh, it did break right there. Oh, we gotta watch the instant replay. So We damn near made it to 90 degrees without it snapping, but it did. It failed, all right, which I expected it to, because it was, I mean, it had so many things going against it in the temper and everything. But when I got to watch that again. I wish I had stopped and talked about it. That sucker went pretty almost 90 degrees. I'd say, I'm guessing it was about there before it snapped. If we put it back together, we might be able to find out. No, it was like that. It's damn near 90, okay? So Mike and everybody else out there, I hope you take this test. I wrecked my knife. It was really a great bushcraft knife too, I swear to God. I hope you take this test constructively, all right? So let's review. Rope test, didn't cut. Is this the size and profile knife that you would make for a rope test? No. 2x4 test, passed and shaved afterwards. And again, this is not the freaking size nor weight of a knife that you would use to chop through a 2x4. That's a good plus. The bend test, again, not the profile and size of a knife that you would bring for that bend test. And and I didn't temper it in a way to take that kind of abuse. So I'm pleased with the bend test. I'm okay. I'm not embarrassed with the rope test. I'm very, very happy with the 2x4 chop, because in reality, that's the only part of this test that this knife was meant to do, was bushcraft batoning, chopping, that kind of stuff. So considering that it's, 30 points to 40 points carbon, considering everything, does a railroad spike make a good knife? I think it makes an okay to good knife. I really do. You guys call me stupid if you want to. This thing did well. I think it performed well. I got to look back at the angle. If we got 30%, I was pleased. If we went beyond 30%, shoot. All right, we didn't fracture until the end. And I don't know what this grain pattern is going to look like for us, but since we're talking and I've wasted so much more of your time, somebody I wasted 33 minutes of their time, he said yesterday. So definitely hard inside. It's funny because you can see a different pattern up and down the spine. All right, I think that's pretty cool. But just again, and I didn't soak that very far. It'd be interesting to go back here where I actually did temper it much more. I forgot to show you the edge before I did the bend, so we'll just look at the pieces that are left, because the edge is untouched. I don't see anything in there. I know you can't really see well, but that's that part, and this part here. I mean, it's bent now because I bent it, but there's no fracturing, there's no chipping, there's no flaking. So for the 2x4 test is why I'm doing this, because I had spent time showing you the edge before. Definitely, no, I would say I see a little bit of something here, very minor flaking maybe or something, but I mean I can barely see it. But short of that, and I wasn't really working that part, I don't think so. Short of that, the edge retention from that chop test, I think, well, because it's shaved and everything. I just wanted you to see that in case I forgot to talk about it. Guys, I'm sorry to hit you with another video. I don't like to do follow-ups, and I probably won't do it again, but I think two reasons that I did the follow-up. Number one, I didn't know how to acceptably test a knife, so there's a particular test that at least is standardized. Again, it's not testing the knife, it's testing the smith. I wouldn't bring a railroad spike to an bonnet or whatever it is. I wouldn't bring a railroad spike to a master blacksmith challenge, junior or juvenile, journeyman, anything. All right, this would be something else for sure. But there's something you can try. It's destructive in the end, typically, because that knife gets a hell of a lot of torque. And I think it showed up okay. Railroad spike make a good knife? I think a good knife. Not above average, not great. It makes a great beater tool, makes a good knife. That's just the follow-up. I'm not trying to preach. I don't give a crap what you think it does. I think it impressed me in this study. Take care, and that's it. I'm not going to come back to this one again. Not at all. Kind of sad about this one because I kind of like that. It was a very useful darn tool. Get out the welder, Chandler. Adios. Goodbye. Sayonara. Shalom. Let's break this off. Alright, well, I thought I was done, but I just keep getting people telling me it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that, with no backup. You know what I mean? So the latest thing now, and it's just in the last few minutes, is that it performed just as well as any mild steel knife would be. Somebody yesterday said performed as well as a wrought iron knife. Okay, fine. So I've got some mild steel in. I'm going to quench it, see if it hardens and breaks like the spike did, and then I'll go ahead and forge up a goddamn mild steel knife, roughly. Put the grind on that's similar to the grind of that other knife, and I'll drive one through the other, and we'll see who wins. This piece of mild, forge it down to roughly the same thickness that I had that test spike. Brought it up to critical. Water quench, super quench. Will it break? Okay. So as far as that goes, hardening is nothing like mild steel. Don't tell. So this is the thing. Listen, I have no problem being freaking wrong. I really don't, because you know what? Every freaking time I'm wrong, I learn something, and I like that. So that's good. Okay. Don't tell me something unless it's freaking true, because what am I supposed to do? Take what you say? Because now I got 7 different opinions. It's freaking horrible, guys. Seriously. If you don't know, say, I think. How often do you? I don't know what I'm doing. I think. At least admit that. Alright, let's forge up a freaking mild steel knife. Spike isn't a high quality knife. No argument there. Dudes, if you're new, railroad spike isn't a high quality knife. Just isn't. It really isn't. But if you do it right, it makes a hell of a good tool. I think it's a good knife. What the hell? Guys, forgive me for not going all the way with this friggin' knife, but I just put the edge on, alright? So it's mild steel. Start off as that stock right there. Okay? I tried to make the profile as similar as I could. I mean, I just guessed, but as similar as I could. Actually, this one's a little bit thicker, a little beefier, but hopefully the edge profile is about the same, and I think it is. You're not getting a good focus here, but alright? I think the amount of meat at the edge is the same. Mild steel. Here we go. Did I get it sharp? Sharp enough, right? I mean, heck, look at this knife. Isn't that an awesome knife? It cuts paper. You know, and I show you cutting paper because the only reason I show cutting paper is not to say, oh, it must be a great knife because it cuts paper. It's because when I have an edge and it isn't perfect or it isn't good, it won't cut well. It actually helps me know that, when I have an edge on something, that paper cuts. And it doesn't take much of a deviation from that edge to cause that paper not to cut. I mean, this is not a clean cut. This is not as sharp as that other knife. But we're not going to test how sharp it is, all right? We're going to test its edge durability, its edge retention. So I'm going to go out there and split some wood. And I'm not going to take it because, Jesus, I don't want to waste any more of your time with this freaking issue. I'm going to chop up some wood. We'll come back and see how that edge is. And then what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm just going to take this knife and drive it down through this knife, and we'll see what the hell. Now, this is a much thinner profile, so it isn't fair. I'll start with it. Well, I'll do both, all right? This one's more fair. I'll hold on to it somehow, and we'll just drive it through, and we'll see what the deformation is on both sides. Will the mild steel freak up that railroad spike? I think it will. I mean, oh, Jesus, metal against metal would probably freak up anything. But what is the effect, and what is the comparison between mild steel and a shitty-ass railroad spike? I mean, just listen to the difference. Unbelievable. Alright, let me chop some wood. Alright, guys, I chopped up maybe, my guess is, 1/10 of what I did with this thing. I'm not fucking around here, guys. Alright. Back here where I couldn't get at, I cut. Up here, not bad. Alright.
Okay. So again, maybe I should go out there and do more time. I don't have more time. All right. All right. It's definitely cut still. No doubt about it. Did it cut as well as it did? I don't know. Now let's do the big test. All right, guys, let's check this thing out in what would be the closest apples to apples comparison as far as bevel goes. Deformation, all right? I mean, that's like a shear, right? Wish I could get closer and have you guys in focus. All right, here's the deformation on the spike. All right, now good freaking super high carbon steel deformation. Where is it? A good quality steel knife might be able to do that same amount of damage without any deformation. All right, you notice I don't see chipping, I see rolling. All right, let's do it again. Well, there ain't no doubt. Let's just do one hit at a time. All right, I got a nick there and a freaking cut there. Same spot again. It's hard for me to hold it in that position. You're watching, guys. Performed as well as a mild steel knife. Let's see. And again, I want to learn. Ready? Right here. Where the frig am I? I'm sorry. I kind of disagree. Let's try this. All right, now this piece here is a much thinner profile, much less meat. So I think it isn't exactly fair, but let's see what happens. We'll do one hit test, because holy shit. Alright, so we got a pretty crappy thing there, but with one hit. Just bit right in there. Alright, let's see what we end up with on this one if I don't hurt myself. That's enough. All right. Who cut what? What do you think? All right. Sorry, Charlie. I'm not trying to say, look how great a railroad spike knife is. I'm not. Nobody's ever said that. I'm shocked. I'm surprised. I think it makes a good knife, especially in a beater situation. It's a decent knife. Mild steel. Wrought, I would imagine, would be worse. So whoever is the wrought comment, this notch right here, where am I? All right, cut that, and that's with a knife with a thinner profile. Maybe that's your argument. All right, so this one here next to it, where am I? Right here. Of course, it's closed up from this one, right? Cut through this thing, and this is the weak freaking blade. I'm done. Listen, I'm not trying to tell anybody, because I don't know shit, guys. But when I see stuff, I kind of think about it and kind of learn about it a little bit. I don't just say something. And I mean, this video series must prove enough that sometimes you got to get out there and try it. All right, right there. This one of these narrow ones, split that sucker. All right, could have cut that knife in half. It's not as shitty as mild, plain old mild steel. It's nowhere near as good as a freaking 01 knife or a file knife, for crying out loud. But You saw the demo in the other video. It's good. I think it's it makes for a good low-end knife. Better than anything you're gonna find in any friggin' department store, I bet you. Practically, for the same price range. I don't know. That's what a railroad spike does to mild steel. And I'm done. I'm not going to. You ask me a question, I'll answer a question. I'm not going to ask anymore. If you're going to sit there and say you don't see anything above normal, above mild in any of the demonstrations that I showed you, then I guess that's your prerogative. For the young kids, this is my closing statement. End of conversation. I'm not coming back here. All right? I hope not anyway. Railroad spike, don't sell it as a quality knife. I think it's a good knife. It's an okay to good knife. That's my opinion, and I think you can feel confident that way. It'll cut you once, but you know what, guys? You can go ahead and buy 01 steel and make a knife and have it be a piece of crap. All right, and you can take a railroad spike and make a knife and have it work like the one that did yesterday. It isn't just the steel. It's the dude behind the hammer, the gal behind the hammer, and the process that you put that steel through. This was hardened, by the way. I went through a hardening process. There's probably no carbon in there to harden anyway. Quenched it in water, all right? As hard as I could. Same thing I did with the railroad spike. So if that's mild steel, then why did the spike snap and this? And, you know, if a spike is mild steel, then why did it snap and this didn't? I don't know, guys. Y'all have a good day. Tell you what, last point. Don't believe me at all. Don't tell me anything unless you can back it up. Unless, oh yeah, I did this, and yeah, right? Because then either I can't believe you and I'm going to argue with you until you prove to me that you're right, or I'm going to have to stop and go do a test like that. And I gotta kind of have to feed my kids, you know. So I gotta get my ass back to work. All right. Don't believe me. Don't believe anybody. Give it a try. Take the time and do it yourself. It's the only time you know what you're doing, especially if you're selling goods. All right, I'm sorry for this video. I'm not sure. I'll put it as a special feature or something. I don't want to distract anybody from looking for normal blacksmithing. We'll catch you on the flip-flop. Ciao.